Well, thank you everyone for joining us today. We are this is session 3 of our 5-part series of the Developing Your Research series. This one's specifically around citation management, and we do this as a yearly series, and it's very well attended by a lot of our students at Athabasca University, but I'm also welcoming those students joining us from other institutions like Memorial University and other CARU institutions. So before I get too far into everything, I'm going to just start with a land acknowledgement for Athabasca University. Athabasca University respectfully acknowledges that we are on and live on and work on the traditional lands of the Indigenous people, Inuit, First Nations, and Métis of Canada. We honor the ancestry, heritage, and gifts of the Indigenous people, and we give thanks to them. Feel free to throw your land acknowledgement in the chat box. You'll notice that right now during the session we don't have cameras and mics enabled. That's just to kind of prevent feedback and disruption, just because we have a lot of people attending the session. But have no fear, throughout the session there will be times for you to ask questions. You can do so by using the chat box, or if you raise your hand, I can give you access to your camera and mic when the time comes for questions. So as you can see, the meeting is being recorded. The link to the meeting recording will be available in the chat afterwards, but the library also posts these on their website, on their YouTube page, so it's easily accessible for you to go back and make reference to. So I think that that's it for housekeeping items, and I don't want to hold up everybody, so I'm going to turn the floor over to Jennifer Rempel, who will be delivering this session for us today. Thanks, Jennifer.
Great. Thank you, Crystal. All right. So yes, welcome everybody to our session on citation management with Zotero. So as Crystal has said, my name is Jennifer Rempel, and I'm the Information Literacy and Resource Access Librarian here at AU Library. All right. So here's what we'll cover during the session. First, we're going to talk about citation management tools, what they are and why you might want to use them. And I'm going to show you where you'll find our citation management guide on the library website, as well as a recording of the webinar later in the week. I'll show you where all that will be. And we're going to take a look at Zotero specifically and how you can use it to import citations, create bibliographies, and to collaborate. Again, as Crystal mentioned, we'll have time at the end of the session for questions. You can use the Q&A, you can use chat for those, but I probably won't be able to actually get to them or see them until the end. And at the end, of course, you can use your microphones as well. And again, it's being recorded, so if we cover a lot of material, but you can go back and revisit that later. And you should get a handout as well with some important links. Okay, so the first question is, what are citation management tools? Some of you probably are aware, but if you're not, it's good to have a little reminder, refresher. Okay, so these are basically software that allow you to capture citation information for resources like journal articles, books, and websites. These tools work by organizing your references into collections, which you can sort, search, and annotate. There's a lot of little fun things you can do when you're in your Zotero library. They do typically allow you to create bibliographies for your assignment in almost any citation format you would need, including APA, MLA, Chicago, and more. You can also use citation management tools to collaborate with colleagues. You can share articles, other items, and to create professional profiles if you choose. So to get us started here, as I mentioned, this is a snapshot of the library homepage. So that link to the library is on the handout too, and hopefully you visited that at some point, or you will in the future. So you can find our guide to citation management tools on the library homepage under Get Library Support, and you'll see a little button there that says Evaluating and Citing Information. And of course, click on Citing Your Sources, and it will take you to just a little bit lower in the page where we have our guides here. So we have a guide to citation management citation management tools and citation styles. So we have a guide for Chicago, APA, MLA, a few other sources, as well as links to books in our collection if you want to borrow a copy of those guides. And then we have our citation management tool guide. And what our citation management guide essentially is a way to kind of get more information about what citation management tool you might want to use. So the main ones tend to be Zotero, Mendeley, and Endnote. And a question we always get is, what should I use? Should I use Zotero or Mendeley or Endnote? What one's better? Well, The answer is really that it's up to you, of course. So it depends on your personal preferences, and you can play around with these tools and decide which you like the best. We tend not to promote Endnote as much because Endnote is a subscription product, so they do have some free features, but to get the real benefit of that, you have to pay for it. And Endnote, we don't have a subscription to that. We don't subscribe to Zotero or Mendeley either, because they are basically free software. So we don't own Mendeley, we don't own Zotero, we don't have access, we don't pay subscription fees. We just give people information about them for people who choose to use them, basically. And our demonstration will cover Zotero specifically because it tends to be more popular. We tend to get more questions about it. Like Mendeley, it is free. One of the issues with Mendeley that some people don't like is that it's owned by a company called Elsevier. They're a major publisher. They've kind of a monopoly. They are a bit controversial in the academic sphere, so some people avoid Mendeley for that reason. So Zotero is free, open source. You can pay for extra storage if you choose, but it tends to be very popular. So, but you can see our guide if you want to take a look and do some compare on your own if you choose. Okay, so for Zotero, if we decide to go with that, what you want to do is, of course, install it. It's the first thing you do. So what you do is there is a web version, a web library, and a desktop app. So you can get Zotero from zotero.org. Pretty easy. Google Zotero, you'll find it. And then, of course, you click on the download button once you're getting set up. So you want to download both Zotero for Windows or whichever tool you have, as well as the connector. So this depends on your device, browser, and preferences. So Zotero, of course, is most useful if you download the standalone app as well as the browser extension, Zotero connector. So when you go into Zotero and download it and get everything set up, it will automatically sense the OS you're using, the operating system you're using, and it'll give you options for that. So you can install it on Firefox, Chrome, Opera, if that even still exists, and various other browsers. You can use Safari, and apparently I am not a Mac user, but there used to be issues with Safari and Zotero. They've apparently resolved those. So if you use Safari, Zotero connector is bundled in with Safari as soon as you download the Zotero app. So anyway, all that to say, that will get sorted once you download it. And for this demonstration, it's Zotero for Windows with the Zotero connector on Chrome. But they should work basically the same. Okay, so of course, if you want to synchronize your work across your web account and your desktop app, remember you have two, your desktop app and a web account. Of course, you have to create an account to set those up anyway, but in order to sync across those devices and accounts, you have to create a single account. So that's pretty straightforward. Of course, when you go to Zotero and download everything, click on register for a free account and then fill in all the required fields. It's pretty standard. All right, and once you do that, here is what your Zotero web library will look like. So this is your Zotero library on the web page. So one of the first things you'll notice is you'll see a little icon on your browser. It looks like a piece of paper. That means that the Zotero connector has been installed on your browser toolbar. So this image here is your web library, nothing imported yet, and then that little browser icon is your connector in your toolbar. Okay, so once you have a fresh, clean account, we're going to start with importing some citations. So many ways you can do this. Of course, you want to use, what I'm going to be demonstrating is the Zotero desktop app. So, okay, you have a web library and an app on your computer, on your desktop. So they are synced across both, but I find that when I'm importing citations on my computer, you have to have the desktop app open. So I'll be demonstrating with the desktop app. Remember, this syncs up with your web app as well. And they look very similar. It's basically the same thing. As you can see here, it's the same kind of three-panel structure. Your options, items, and then details on the right. So they look almost exactly the same. Okay, so this is my, again, desktop app. The first thing you want to do once you have your account is create collections. So this is very important. You want to create a different collection for each different assignment or paper or whatever project you're working on for which you are collecting specific citations or reference lists. So in this instance, basically per assignment. So you have full library, you have my library in Zotero, which is every single citation you've imported. But all of the collections are subfolders for specific purposes. And you want to make sure you do this because later on when you're creating your bibliography or reference list, for example, you want to make sure that it's all in the same place. So you do have to be careful with this. You can create new collections in a few ways. It's a little bit tiny, but on the right there you can see an icon of a little folder with a plus sign. If you click on that, you can create a new collection, and it'll ask you what the name is, and then you can create it that way. You can also see at the top there it says File. If you go to File, New Collection, you can create a new collection that way as well. So you do want to give it a name that indicates the purpose, what you're collecting resources for. So for example, it could be chemistry assignment, Shakespeare essay, French 100, whatever. And in this, so that when you begin importing references, you move them into the appropriate folder. So you keep them all in one place for specific assignment. So for this demo, I am creating a folder called biology paper. So I'll just show you what that looks like. And you can see on the right there the group libraries. That's old. That's my personal account, but you can ignore those for now. Yeah, so I'm going to show you a few ways to import references. So we're getting into the pulling in citations now. So many ways to do this. I'm going to do a sample search in Discover. So hopefully some of you have used, or all of you, I'd hope, have used Discover before. This is the default search on the library homepage. So what this tool is, for those not aware, it is a meta search tool that essentially crawls the web and the library collections and databases for citation information, pulls that in, and it links you to full text items where possible. So it's not, strictly speaking, a database. It's more of a citation index that links to full text. It's very useful for getting an idea of what's out there on your topic and for finding materials, although you can go off and branch into specific database searches later. But in this case, I'll just show you how you use this for a citation. So I have done a search for the terms climate change, biodiversity, and Canada. This is my biology paper is about that topic. So I'm starting to collect my citations. So as I search for this, I click search and my results page pops up. So this is what you would see if you were doing a search. This is your results screen, a little bit tiny. But if you do want to import a citation, the first thing you do is of course find the item and then you click on it. So in this case, I'm going to click on the title of this article to open up and discover what's called the full record. So again, just real quick here, I've done a search and discover and I found an item that I want to use. So I'm clicking on the title. I'm going to pull this in to export the citation. So once I'm in this record, it's called the full record. You can see at the very top there's a piece of paper, that connector icon. Click on that. And as you will see, this is a zoom in. In your browser toolbar, a pop-up will appear and it will mirror the folders in your Zotero account. So you can check through and say, I want this saved to my biology paper collection. And then you do that. So you click on that, click done, and it will import the citation into Zotero for you. And there you are. And that's what it would look like essentially, is on the left-hand side, you have your folders, your collections, your information. And then you have in the middle, in this biology paper folder, your article, like all your titles listed. And then here on the right, you will see further details. So it's pretty straightforward for that reason. One thing to be very clear about, which people often forget or don't know, is that Zotero does not automatically save article PDFs or full text to your web or desktop libraries. It's only saving the citation. So if you choose to, again, this will take up some storage on your Zotero account, or actually if it's on your desktop, it'll take up storage there, so it doesn't really matter. If you want to attach PDFs, you can do that pretty easily. So what you want to do is in your Zotero collection, you want to right-click or highlight the item that you want to attach a PDF to. And then you click on this here. You go attach file. So the first thing you do, of course, is to download the PDF, save it somewhere where you can find it easily, and then attach it that way. So just so you're here real quick. Attach file. I have saved it already to a specific folder. Again, I've downloaded the PDF myself, and I've already saved it to a folder where I could find it very easily. I've gone into Zotero. I've highlighted the corresponding citation. I've clicked on this little folder here, and I've said attach file. And then a pop-up appears going to my desktop where I found the files. I click open, and then I attach the file to the PDF, or I attach the PDF file to the citation in Zotero. Because again, Zotero does not automatically pull in full text, only citations. So, but now once that I've done that, it's pretty convenient because I can then open the PDF within Zotero and I can make notes and highlights and annotations all over the place. I'm not going to go into too much detail on this aspect because we don't have a lot of time, but you can see here you have a lot of PDF functions, like you can highlight in different colors, you can make notes, you can make annotations, all that stuff. So that is all for one specific research project. You could save all your notes, all your citations, basically in one folder in Zotero. So another thing to point out too is you don't have to save your PDFs right away. This is also a useful thing with Zotero as well. Is I know when you're sometimes initially doing research, you just want to pull in a whole pile of citations at once and then look at them later. You can do this in Zotero if you choose to. So once you've pulled in a citation, for example, this is one we're working on, if you right-click on it, you will see this little button or an option here. It says View Online. If you are, say you got this from a library database, this will take you back, if you're on the same device and you're logged in, it will take you back to that item in the library's collections, or it'll take you back to the website you found it on or whatever. So that View Online button is useful because you can just pull in citations and then click that and it'll take you back to the website wherever you found that item. So you can go back later, or if you decide you don't want to use it, you can delete citation, but you can go back later and then add items if you choose. So that was, I showed you pulling in citations from Discover. It essentially works the same way in all of our databases too. You will see that Zotero connector button, click on that, it'll pull in the citation. For example, Google Scholar is also a popular resource, and it's a place where you can find a lot of materials and citations too. So what Google Scholar is it's basically a type of Google search, of course, but it crawls the web for, so it's searching for research material, scholarly material, so books. It's searching for, materials from libraries, from institutional repositories, from databases, open access collections, all over the place. So it's pretty useful for finding materials. If you do find an item in Google Scholar that you want to cite, or if you can't find the citation elsewhere and it's on Google Scholar, this is a pretty easy way to pull in a citation as well. So if you found an article that you want to save the citation for, you will see a little cite button on the bottom of the entry. So this climate change and biodiversity loss article, I want to use this in my paper maybe. So I click on that little cite button right below. And when you do that, a little pop-up will appear. And it'll give you a few options. This is where it can get confusing. You want to choose Ref Man. It's hard to see. Ref Manager, essentially what it means, is Reference Manager. Because there's BibTeX, Endnote, RefWorks. We don't use any of those for this demonstration or really at all in the library. But anyway, click Ref Manager and it will save what is called an RIS file. That'll save to your browser. And then it's pretty straightforward there. Once that's saved, you just click on that RIS file. Another pop-up will appear from Zotero asking to confirm that that citation's been imported. And then once it has, it will be imported into your Zotero library. So just to recap really quickly, we are in Google Scholar. We found an article that we want to pull in the citation for. In this case, I click Cite. The pop-up appears. I choose Ref Manager. And then this is a little more tricky. Again, it's not quite the one button thing as it is with other Zotero websites rather, or with other web pages. But in this case, you click on the RIS file that would download to your browser, or you can open that. And then once you open that file, a pop-up will ask you to import that citation. But once you get into Zotero, here's where you want to pay close attention, because this has pulled in a file of data by itself into your regular overall library. So in this case, it's not actually in your biology paper folder. So you do want to make sure you fix that. So you essentially just drag and drop. Very easy. Highlight the citation, pull it over into biology paper, and it will then be included in that folder as well. And then, of course, what you probably want to do right away is delete that older file of data. So here you can see, just to make it really clear, on the right-hand side, if the folder is biology paper, I have dragged and dropped this citation into that folder, because I want them all together for that same assignment. And then I've gone and then highlighted the Scholar 12, whatever, that's just some code that's used to pull in the file. And I've deleted that. It says delete collection. So it's deleted that. And so in that, what that means then is it will get rid of all the duplicates. So that citation will only be in my biology folder, biology paper collection. That's what you want. Okay, so you can also pull in multiple citations at once from Google Scholar. This is a really useful feature, but you want to use it with caution because, of course, Google Scholar, you can get millions and millions of results for your searches. If you have a very specific, say, narrowly defined search that doesn't have a lot of results, you could theoretically, if you wanted to, pull in more citations at once. So in this case, very specific search. I've searched for climate change, biodiversity, British Columbia, and Indigenous health. Very limited number, and since 2024. So only articles on that topic published in the last year. So it's a very, very narrow search, not very overwhelming results. There's 58 results. So that's pretty easy to look through if I wanted to. And then in that case, what I would do is I would click on the Zotero icon. In this case, it's turned into a little card catalog, an old school card catalog icon. You click on that in your results page, and then it'll pop up a whole window. And these results are this is the first page of your Google search, Google Scholar results. So it'll go page by page. So in this case, you can check through, okay, these 3 papers I looked at, citations looked interesting. I'm going to pull the citations in all at once. So you can do that if you choose. Again, it's an option, but for the most part, you pull them in one at a time. But if you have a very narrow set of results, you want to pull them all in, you can do that too. Pretty straightforward. And it's the same thing. It has the RIS folder or file that comes up. You got to save. Okay, so we're covering quite a lot of ground, but I want to show you now how to import a web page into Zotero. So with web pages in particular, note that your standalone desktop Zotero app has to be open while you're doing this. So it's kind of a pain. Well, I mean, not really. If you're working on your computer already, just open the desktop app in the background and then pull your citations in. It's pretty easy. But in this case, I have decided that this country profile is also useful for some background information on my paper. So I want to cite this website as well. So to pull it in for my reference list or bibliography, it's the same thing. In this case, you'll notice the Zotero icon again. It's a little piece of paper. Click on that. What it tends to do is it tends to remember where you've saved your, like per session in your browser, it remembers where you saved your last items. So in this case, I clicked on the piece of paper and it automatically saved it to the biology paper folder. If you want to save it to a different folder, you can go through those drop-down menu options and pick the appropriate one. But in this case, it's convenient because I'm working on this one project and all my resources are going into this folder. So it's automatically doing that for me. But again, very straightforward. On the website, you want to pull it in. There, click on the button and it's pulled in to your Zotero library. I mean, it does get a little bit tricky later on, though, because this all looks really easy and convenient. But you have to remember, it's all machine-generated, right? So I want to warn you about machine-generated citations in general, even if they're from Google Scholar, if they're from a database, if they're from wherever, odds are they were machine generated. So you have to always double check. You have to be very careful. In this case, you can see the author and title of the web page are incorrect. So what they've said is title is just main details. That's not the title of the website at all, right? And the biosecurity is the unit that wrote this. Well, we don't know this. We don't need to know that. That's not useful information. This is actually incorrect. So if I were to pull up a bibliography using these fields of data, it would be incorrect because essentially when you're making your Zotero bibliography, all it's doing is it's taking a field and plugging it into the appropriate spot. So all the data in these fields just gets pulled out as is and plunked into your bibliography according to a specific style. So whatever information is in there is what's going to be in your bibliography. And we'll get to that in a bit more detail towards the end. But it's pretty straightforward to go ahead and then edit that information. So what I've done here is I've noticed that the title was incorrect. The title is actually Canada Country Profile, and the author is essentially a group author. It was the Convention on Biological Diversity. So the group author is what I would include if the website has no named author. So I've edited the information in this right-hand panel to be correct next time. I do also want to point out that it's useful to use Zotero for capturing website information because it takes a snapshot as well. So websites change all the time, they get taken off, they disappear, all these things can happen. But it takes a snapshot automatically of what the website looked like when you visited it. And of course, you can see too, it has the data of that visit as well. So it's pretty useful, the metadata in the background. Again, these fields, again, just to stress it once more, any citation that is fully machine generated will have problems. So you're always going to have to double check. It's just pulling in the data that it has, right? Okay, so we'll carry on looking at pulling in citation information for books and ebooks. Again, it's all kinds of resources. So in this instance, I want to show you the library catalog. So if you are doing research in the library's collections and you want to see what books and ebooks we have on your topic, you can do searches there. This is just a screenshot zoomed in on the library webpage. This is our library catalog. Again, books, ebooks, and other physical materials the library owns, like DVDs and kits. That kind of stuff is there. The search I have done there is on biodiversity and Canada, which is my topic. So again, that library catalog specifically. And I found that this ebook looks pretty useful. Okay, could be useful for my paper. I think I actually want to cite this. So, or at least pull it into my references list, right? So to do that, pretty easy. Again, you want to, to cite a specific item from a database or a catalog, you want to click on the title to, again, open up that full record. And then once you're in the full record, it's very easy once more. I mean, again, Zotero changed this recently. It used to be a lot more complicated. Now it's just like one click, one click, one click, and it's super simple. It's actually probably shortened this presentation quite a bit too. But here you can see the icon has turned into a book this time. So it's kind of, the browser connector sort of senses what kind of item it is. So in this case, it's a little book icon, kind of cute. Click on that. Again, it'll pull that into my biology paper folder if that's what I've selected already, or I use the drop down to put it in the correct folder. So it's pulled in again the citation information for this ebook from the library catalog. I also want to show you other ways to import book citations. Again, actually, I forgot to mention, you can put in Zotero citations manually, where you just literally say, new citation, type in all the fields manually. It saves you so much time just to do the Zotero click. So I'm not promoting Amazon here at all. I'm just mentioning it as another, they sell a lot of books and they have a lot of data on those books. So if you have, say, borrowed a book from your friend or your parents, or it's a book you already own and you want to pull in the citation data really quickly, you can do a search for Amazon for that book or for whatever. And so in this case, same thing, you click on that little piece of paper icon in Amazon in the record for the book. I will caution you, Amazon has a lot of different formats, so make sure it's the same edition. Make sure it's the same publication year, same edition, and make sure it's the same format. You know, it's a print book, not a Kindle book, that kind of thing. And then once you do that, once you're in the record for the correct item, you can then save it again to your Zotero collection and it'll pull in that citation. So it's pretty convenient. And same thing goes for the Internet Archive. Now, hopefully the Internet Archive lasts, you know, they were sued, so they might be shut down soon, but hopefully not. But same thing for Internet Archive. It's a great place to find scanned, digitized books, usually older materials. So if there's something that the library doesn't have or you can't find it anywhere in print, you can find it maybe on the Internet Archive. So I found a really useful resource on the Internet Archive. I want to use this citation. Again, same thing. Go into the item on the website, click on that little piece of paper icon, and it will automatically pull in the citation for this as well. So you can see we're building up quite the list of references as we go for this biology paper. So in this case too, I actually want to point out the things you can do, some more things you can do with your imported references. I've kind of talked about editing the fields here. If you click on one of the items in the right-hand panel here, you can just see more of those field entries that will be used in your bibliography eventually. This is another example of why you might want to edit those entries. So in this case, this is our Internet Archive book. This is the item on climate change and biodiversity in the Americas that we've pulled in from Internet Archive. The Internet Archive is interesting because it digitized scanned materials, usually from other libraries or other institutions. So sometimes the metadata will actually be really bad because they will pull in all this information like the library it came from and all that kind of stuff, which you don't need. In this case, it's listing the Internet Archive as a contributor or an author. So that's not correct. So you want to edit that, who the actual authors are. In this case, I believe there were a number of main authors. So you can edit that by clicking on contributor, and you can changing it. It's a contributor. Is it an editor? Is it an author? Whatever. And you can change the data there. Luckily, if I want to go back and change this information, I can also use, I showed you a few ways to get back to the item where you found it. In this case, if you go on the right-hand side, you can see usually a URL. So, okay, I want to go back to that Internet Archive book. I go and I click on the URL, pop it out, and immediately it'll open it up in a new window. So you can get another advantage of Zotero too is you can keep track of things and where you found them a little bit more easily because there's so much metadata packed in there. It's usually much more easy to track things down if you've forgotten where they are. Okay, so and again, also in this case too, I want to point out this book has a series of editors in this example. So this one from Internet Archive. So you can actually go through and add a little plus sign, minus sign. You can add editors, add authors, add contributors in all these data fields. And do be aware, you need the nature of the way citations are set up is, author, first name, last name, initials, that kind of stuff. So the way it works in Zotero is each individual piece of information has its own field. So in this case, the author has a first name, last name field. Make sure you have those correct as well. So you don't want them all in one box. You want them separated accordingly so that later on, when you make your citation, it's pulling the proper information from the appropriate field. Okay, and that's where we will head next. We're about halfway through, so we've finally gotten to bibliographies. Usually the reason people want to use Zotero in the first place is to create a bibliography because it's really easy and very helpful. So again, stressing this as well, not only do you have to be wary of machine-generated citations, you want to be very careful in Zotero, any citation management tool, that you are keeping all the items that you want in your reference list in that same collection, right? Because again, it's not going to remember that for you. Zotero can't remember, oh yeah, actually, I was going to include this paper in there too. I'll just type it in later. It's not going to remember that. So anything you want to include in your references list that you want to have in your Zotero collection, make sure it's in the exact same collection for that assignment. So in this case, I'm writing a biology paper on biodiversity. I don't want to have a folder that's every single paper that I've looked at for all of my assignments in biology. No, I want one folder for one assignment, one folder for one bibliography, essentially. So just be very, very careful of that and be really wary that everything you want in that bibliography or references list is in that collection. Because once you do that, you can click on the folder for which you want to create a references list. So in this case, biology paper, I've clicked on that, I'm ready to go. And then I click on create bibliography from collection. So very straightforward. It will pop up to ask you which citation style you want to use. There are very many styles. So as you can see here already, the default is sort of APA 7, but you can choose Chicago, MLA, Turabian, whichever style. You can also, if you see down here, there's a little button that says Manage Styles. I'm not going to get into that right now. If you have a very obscure style, like for a specific journal, for example, you can pick those different styles too. I'm just going to do APA 7 for the purposes of this demonstration. And I also want to click Bibliography as the output mode, and then RTF, so rich text format. You want to make sure you're saving it rich text format, because what this will do, you can save it as HTML as well, so it's like just more like notepad style, just the text, but I usually go RTF. That's usually what you want to do. If you do HTML, you can copy paste into a document, but in this case, RTF will open it up as a Word document. So once I've, said bibliography, save as RTF, I click OK. And again, I want to save this file, this RTF file, in a place where I could find it really easily on my computer or device. So on my desktop, for example, I have a folder, maybe it says Zotero, or biology paper, or whatever, and I can save it there. So you save that file. We can easily find it later, and then you can go open the file, and you can see this is what the exported file in Word would look like. So it looks pretty good. It saved a lot of work. It saved a lot of formatting, a lot of typing, but again, can't stress it enough. Be super careful with machine-generated citations because As you can see, this is not all correct. I've basically just pulled in raw citations and I've put them into a bibliography and I've done very sort of minimal editing within those fields in Zotero. So you can see what that turns out. Actually, this is not bad. This is pretty good. There's some problems with page numbers being missing, problems with some DOIs missing, things like capitalization is different between, say, MLA and APA. So couple of problems here. There's a electronic access code that we don't need, things like this. So there are issues with these machine-generated citations. You can go into Zotero and change things. So you can, as I showed you, you can fix incorrect information in Zotero by editing things. The challenge was, say, like capitalization, for example. In this case, I've gone to this article. It pulled in, so you can see here, the capitalization is wrong from politics to transformative politics of nature. This capitalization is incorrect for APA style. Might be fine in MLA. So if you're using APA more, I could go in then and say, well, I want the capitalization to be more normalized for APA. You go in there, click on it, edit it, save it, and then next time I generate this citation, or this bibliography rather, this will be formatted correctly. So you can edit your fields in Zotero to be more correct, depending on what style you're using. Although, again, there are limitations because things like capitalization, you can't really generate in terms of the way you can with other fields. So something to be aware of there. All right, so I also want to point out DOIs and URLs. So a DOI, you've probably heard this, you need to include them usually. I believe Chicago you do, I'm not sure. But certainly with your MLA and APA citations, they want you to include either a DOI or a URL if they're available. So what DOI means, DOI is Digital Object Identifier, which basically is a number, it's like a publication number and a link to the item on the publisher's website. So this is, the DOI is meant to be the definitive number or way to track down a published item. So sometimes the DOI is available right in the item's PDF. So you can open a PDF of an article and the DOI will be right in the top corner with the other information, or in the record online. So in this case, I'm looking at this article, The Politics to Transformative Politics. I noticed the DOI was missing. I go back into my data in Zotero and sure enough, there's no DOI, but there is a URL. So this URL takes me back to the ProQuest database that I found the article in. So I'm following from, there's no DOI, so I'm going into the record on the right in Zotero. I'm going to the URL. I'm following that URL and it's taking me back to the library database that I found this article in the first place. But what I'm seeing here, when I look in the details of this article, there is no DOI listed. Usually, if you go abstract details or details in any database, it would show you where the DOI is. In this case, no DOI. Okay, well, finally, if I really want to track it down, I downloaded the PDF. In this case, there's no PDF either. Or sorry, there's no DOI on the PDF either, which oftentimes you will see right at the top. It's publication information, DOI right there. In this case, there's nothing. So if the, again, definitive place for DOIs is a website called crossref.org. I included this link on your handout. I'm not sure if Crystal has sent you the handout yet or it'll come later, but
Yeah.
okay, awesome. Thanks, Crystal. Yeah, so there is a link to crossref.org. So this is just a website that collects and aims to make it easy to find publication information for scholarly materials and it collects DOIs, like global DOIs, because they're pretty universal these days. So go to crossref.org and click on specifically search metadata. That just means data about the data, like title or whatever. So in this case, I click search metadata and I'm putting the title of the article within quotation marks, because again, this is a large database of citations. So if you put the title within quotation marks, and this works when you're doing other searches as well, it keeps those words linked together as a single phrase. So I click search and sure enough, actually, there is my article and there's the DOI right there. So DOI was a little bit hidden, but you can find it. If you go to Crossref and there's no DOI, you try to, if you can't find a thing, it's hard to prove you can't find something in a way. But if you do your title searches, you do an author search, if you cannot find a DOI, it probably doesn't have one. Not everything has a DOI, particularly if it was published sort of before the scholarly communications era, digital publication era, so in the 90s or whatever. It probably won't have a DOI, but it might. Anyway, that's how you can find DOIs. Crossref.org is an easy place to look. And I can see it there. I can copy and paste it. So I've gone to Crossref and I've copied and pasted the DOI with the HTTP and everything on there. Copy and paste the entire DOI and put that then in my field here with the publication information for this article, and there we go. So then, again, when I make that bibliography once more, that DOI will be included this time because it's in that field. So you can track things down pretty easily that way too. Okay, so we have a bit of time left. I'm going to get into word processing a little bit. I don't know how useful this section is in terms of in-text citations, because we have our bibliography, and of course the bibliography is only part of the story. You also need in-text citations when you are using MLA, APA, Chicago style. So in this case, pretty straightforward. They've changed it now, so once you download Zotero, desktop, have your account, you download the connector plugin, you go to documentation, you should be, or rather, if you go into your Word program, it should connect Zotero to your word processor if you download everything. Again, this is they've just started doing it this way recently, so to check, you might want to go to Zotero documentation. This is in your Zotero web library. Click on documentation, and then scroll down this list that comes up and it says word processor integration. So essentially, when Zotero is downloaded and the Zotero connector is installed, it's supposed to automatically install Word in your word processor. I couldn't test this because my word processor, I've had it for a long time with Zotero on it, but once everything's installed, you should then go into Word and see Zotero pop up in your Microsoft Word program. So this is what you can use then when you're writing your papers and stuff. You have the Zotero connector for in-text citations. Now, again, the caveat is, I don't know how useful this is because it is actually quite a few steps, but say you want to include an in-text citation. I'm writing my paper and I want to cite a particular article here. So what I would do is I put my cursor where I want my in-text citation to go. And then I click then on Zotero and I click on this Add Edit Citation button. And then a pop-up again will appear asking you to pick the style, APA 7, okay. It then takes you back into Zotero, and then you have to either click or do a quick search for the item you want to cite. So in this case, I want to cite this Brubaker article. I've searched for her name. This is the article I want to cite. I click OK, and it pulls in the citation, Brubaker et al. 2024. So again, kind of a lot of steps. It really is literally faster just to type that out. But if you're doing a whole bunch of them maybe, or something like that, you might find this useful. Personally, I think it's a little bit cumbersome, but if you want to use it, you can. And actually, sometimes in your citations, again, this is APA, if you are directly quoting something, you want to include your page number as well. Again, this is actually a new feature that Zotero has introduced pretty recently, but now you can add page numbers. Same process as before. So you're in your Word document and you want to add a citation, click on this, but instead you are going to click on the item you want to cite. You want to add the page number. So I know this quotation about traditional foods comes from page 11 because I was reading the paper. I put the page number and I click omit author because I named the author in the sentence preceding it. So you can do that and then it'll just pull in the citation to just be the date and page number. Personally, probably more hassle than it's worth. I'd rather just type it out. And again, it's not how I work when I write, but could be useful. Just be extremely careful that you are actually using the correct article. This is kind of why I don't like it as much, because when you originally do it, right, you're pulling in the citation, you have to make sure you're picking the right one from the list and then all this stuff. So again, may or may not be useful for you, but that is an option. Okay, now finally, I will get into the last couple minutes or so, I won't get into too much detail. We'll go into collaboration a bit, increasingly less popular function, I think, of citation management tools in general, but I want to talk about that anyway because it is actually very useful. So one of the advantages of using Zotero or Mendeley, is it's a web-based software that's not tied to your status as an AU student or staff member. So like RefWorks, you had to be a student, for example. Endnote, usually you have to be a student or prof to get the subscription access. So this means you can keep your Zotero account whether or not you're affiliated with a university. either as an employee or student. So you can use them cross-institutionally. So if you want to collaborate with a fellow student at another university, collaborate with a different professor somewhere else, collaborate with a colleague at a different institution, you can do that quite easily in Zotero. So you can create a shared library. So I'm going to demonstrate this in the Zotero web app. So when you're online in your web account, you can click on groups, and this allows you to create a new group to share articles and materials. So I've clicked on groups in my web account. And then this is what Zotero looks like on the web still. So it kind of looks old school, but you have your nice looking fancy library and then the old school kind of documentation in the back. But that's what you see. So you click on groups, it'll take you to this page, create a new group, and then of course you want to give your group a name that sort of describes its purpose. In this case, me and my colleagues were researching digital literacy, so we created a folder or a group called that. Pretty easy. And then you want to select the level of privacy you want. So of course, public, open, or closed membership. So a public closed membership, people can view it. Other Zotero users can see this, but they can't join it. Right? They can see that there's a group, but they can't join it themselves. For the public and closed is semi-private. So, public, rather, I misread. Public and open, anybody can see and join your group. Public and closed, people can see your group, but they can't join it without an invite. Whereas private membership, nobody can see it. It's only for people you've shared the link with. But again, I don't know how many people are, hanging around in these Zotero forums, but you never know. So you might want to have it private. Okay, so once you've chosen sort of your privacy level, again, click Create Group and make sure that you've confirmed the settings are what you want. You can always change those later on, of course, if you want to be more or less private, for example. And then your groups will be your groups will be visible in your Zotero account under the Groups tab. So again, this is sort of the back end of my web library where I've created this group for my colleagues and I to collaborate with. And then so you can also click on Manage Profile under this group for more options. So for example, if you want to invite other members to share articles and things like that. So again, that's pretty easy. Once your group has been set up, you can click on Manage Members and then send invitations out. So if you happen to know somebody's Zotero username, more likely you're going to just send them the invite with their email address. So it's pretty straightforward. You can send more invitations. Again, include their either their email address or their Zotero ID, send out the invite, and then you can either confirm or deny that those, and you can confirm or deny other people applying for the group as well. So it's pretty easy to control who has access to the group. And then in this case too, you can add people once they've accepted your invite. You can add them to the members of the group, and you can adjust their status. So you can be an admin that has control over importing and exporting citations, that kind of stuff. Member can just view citations and add them, whereas you can also remove somebody from the group. So they can be an admin, they can be a member, or you can remove them. So a couple options for managing your users if you decide to do this. Again, it's more intuitive when you're actually working on this in person on your own too, like as you go. So in this case too, you can also send messages within Zotero. Again, I'm not sure how popular this sort of functionality is anymore, but you can send messages within your group within Zotero, for example, if you choose to, within the app. So pretty straightforward. You can see your little inbox at the top there too. So you can also send messages to more than one group member, for example. That's easy too. And then also once you sort of have a group library, this is where you're going to start sharing documents. So when you're in your group, you click on Group Library, and this will open up your collective library where you can, again, it's similar to the web one that you have. It's similar to your personal one, except for it's for groups to share their specific citations. It works the same way as regular imports do, but it will just import the citation into that specific group library so people you're collaborating with can see the citations as well. Okay, another final little bit here. You can use Zotero for your sort of professional or personal profile if you choose as well. Mendeley used to do this a lot more. They kind of stopped doing it so much. I'm not sure, again, how popular sort of Citation Manager backends are for networking, but again, more so for collaboration with colleagues could be useful if you want to have a profile. Pretty easy. Again, you're in your web app. click on the little arrow next to your name and click on My Profile. And again, this will take you to that kind of old school looking back end where you can edit your own profile. So it's pretty, whatever you want to include, it's up to you. You can include like your own publications, you can include your CV, your name, research preferences, a photo if you want. Again, this is all perfectly optional. It's up to you if you want to have a detailed profile or not. Again, as the years go by, I find these are increasingly less popular. Fewer people having profiles in Zotero accounts that are searchable or that they're shareable, but that said, it's an option if you want. And again, it's pretty straightforward to add your own publications and your own citations to your Zotero account. Oh, sorry, I bumped that. So if you happen to be a researcher or a student who's published and you want to just keep those separate, I'm just showing you this because it's a little bit of a different process for importing citations. So, for example, I have pulled in to my library a citation for an article that I wrote, and it's in my main library. Again, I will drag and drop this into the folder called My Publications. You can only do this, or you really only should do this with articles you've actually written, because it will ask you, like a pop-up will say, confirm that you have created this work and add it to my publications. I mean, you could lie if you wanted. I don't know what the benefit would be, but anyway, if you want to keep a list of your own publications, it can be useful that way as well. And then that does then show up on your profile in Zotero backend as well. So again, all this is perfectly optional. You can use the collaboration features, profiling features if you want to, just sort of showing you that they're there. All right, so that was a brief introduction to Zotero. We covered a lot of material. I just want to let you know, though, as we wrap up, the library is here to help you. We have many ways to contact us and a lot of webinars coming up too. So again, we offer webinars and tutorials on how to use the library. Again, links to those tutorials are in the handout. And if you go to our web page, you can see About AU Library and go to our Contact Us page. That, of course, has all of our contact information, email address, phone number. Best way to get a hold of us usually during the week is through email. We operate on business hours, so that's Monday to Friday, 8:30 to 4:30 Mountain Time. We answer emails all through the day, and we do chat twice a week. We are going to look at expanding services, but we're a bit understaffed. And you can see the Ask Us chat button. Chat operates from 10:30 to 2:30 on Tuesdays and Thursdays. But yeah, anytime you want to ask us a question, you can send us an email and we'll get back to you as soon as we can. And again, just quickly for Zotero and Mendeley specifically, if you have like detailed tech support questions about Zotero and Mendeley, we can't really help you with those. But essentially, we can show you how to use them, the value of them. You might want to use them for your research, stuff about data, that kind of thing. But we're not really tech support for these tools. We just kind of show you that they're there. We don't own them. We don't subscribe to them. We don't produce them. We just share them. So, all right, so we're basically at the end now. So I guess if anyone has any questions, I can take a look at the chat. If people want to use their microphones. Oh, okay, so I have a question. Actually, I do see a couple. Oh, and thank you for the comments. I'm glad the presentation was helpful. Gee, can be used to manage individual quotes within a particular citation. I would say kind of. You can play around with the notes in Zotero. So you can say copy paste a particular quotation mark within Zotero and like use that later on. I don't know. It's like I say, I'm thinking mostly the in-text citation options, which is not that useful. So yes, you can. When you say manage individual quotes within a particular citation, it depends on what you mean by manage as well. So yeah, that's a bit tricky. So Google Scholar citations, do we assume they're valid or check for their validity? So what I would say about Google Scholar, and I'm going to do, I think I will do a Google Scholar presentation coming up. I haven't set a date yet, but it's pretty popular, so I should do that too. Google Scholar generally is reliable because it's scholarly material from, again, libraries, databases, institutional repositories. What those are, though, or they're called preprint repositories. Archive, ARXIV is a big one. They are where scientists and researchers can share papers before they've been peer reviewed. So Google Scholar has a lot of that kind of material. Probably still reliable, but be very careful. If it's a preprint or hasn't been fully peer-reviewed yet, try to see if you can find the published version instead. So yes, Google Scholar in general, materials there are going to be reliable, but you want to double check, has it actually been peer reviewed yet? Is it from institutional repository or, things like that. So you can also ask the library if you have any like real doubts about that. Generally, yes, Google Scholar is safe, but as with everything, just double check. You can't really trust the machines, unfortunately, as you can see with our citations. So just confirm everything, yeah. And as a recording, yes, once the session's over, the recording will be available in chat, so you should be able to access it then. And again, I'm going to post that actually in YouTube. I'm just going to, pull up our YouTube channel. I'm going to try to get this video up as soon as possible, but I have to download it and everything. So probably by tomorrow, hopefully, I'll get that up. So the YouTube channel's here. Just put that link in chat. Oh, and Google Scholar. How did I find Google? Yes. So what I will say with Google Scholar, this is a bit of a digression, but you have Google, it's scholar.google.ca. Pretty straightforward. You can do searches there. But if you want to use Google Scholar connected to AU Library, so if you just use Google Scholar like that from this link, it will show you a lot of material on the web. If you use Google Scholar through the library or with AU Library links set up, it'll show you where that article is in the library if we have it. So I'm just going to send you that too. I think I have a link to the Google Scholar. Let's just see. I think I put that in the handout, but I can't quite remember. So I'll just send you the Google Scholar research guide. So it tells you everything you need to know about Google Scholar and the library. So basically, if you go into your settings in Google Scholar, you can choose library links and click those there. Or you can literally, like we have a database list. If you go to Google Scholar through that list, it's the same thing. But honestly, it's easier just to put it in your own settings. Best way to find a published paper from archive.org. Depends where it was published. Basically, you want to do you see what journal it was published in, if possible. If it was published, and then you see if the library has access to that journal. Or again, do a web search as well, or you can do a title. You can usually do a named author search, like in Google Scholar. So oftentimes, researchers in Google Scholar will have a link with their profile. There might be a link to the published version in there, or at least a citation of the published version. But again, it depends on where it's published, right? Because archive or bioRxiv is the same. BioX archive, they also do the same thing. They publish things pre-peer review or pre-publication. So you kind of just got to look because they could be published all over the place, basically. So it could be anywhere. So double check. Usually, if you download something from Google Scholar that's a preprint, often it will have a big watermark saying pre-publication or something like that. So just be cautious. That's all. Pretty reliable. Just cross the T's, dot the I's. Okay, I'm not seeing any further questions. So again, I hope this was informative. And yeah, this is getting my wheels turning for a Google Scholar session coming up sometime soon. So yeah, and thanks everybody. Thank you for attending. I appreciate that. And thank you for your kind comments.